Good morning. It's the 10th. It is 10 o'clock. Well, possibly just after 10 o'clock, but as near as. So good morning to you. It is Block of the Month Day. We've done 9 blocks. Yes, we have. Which means that it must be time to put all the components together. So Jane's here to talk us through. She's going to show us how you can quilt as you go or just do the whole shebang. We're going to talk about different kinds of wadding that you might want in your life. And Arthur's here, the dog. He's joined us as well in the corner. We've got the fire on, especially for him, so he doesn't get cold. It's cold. You need your quilts. You need your quilts. Now, before you all start saying, what is this loveliness? This isn't the quilt of the month. No, 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 no. We're going to bring this next month.
Yes.
So this is a sneaky peek for next month's Block of the Month, where we want to bring you, once you've got into the hang of quilting, it's based around one of the blocks, isn't it?
Yes.
Done large, and we will be bringing you 2 options. This is the Tilda Bon Voyage, gorgeous, option, and then we're also going to do a more traditional Jo Morton, nice, option as well. So they will be your 2 options. That is next month. This is a little sneaky peek for you. Of course, the block, we're going to have to pull that off the table a little bit so that you can see the whole quilt. We're going to talk wadding, we're going to talk binding, we're going to talk quilting, because these are the things that never get covered. So we're going to do them because we can.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to shimmy over there. I'm going to take this with me. I'm going to have a look out for any questions that anyone might have. Oh, hang on. Look at juggling. Juggling. It comes round quick, doesn't it? Geraldine says. Yes, it does. Because don't forget that this was the very first show we did.
Yeah.
Ever. So hang on, how many months is that? 5 months, 6 months? 5 months.
Yeah.
So Natasha makes 5 months old. Happy birthday to us. That's very exciting. Fiona says, morning, Jane and Natasha, very exciting. Helen Law says, good morning. Who else have we got? Jackie, good morning, good morning, good morning. Alison's joining us. Elaine and Gail and Helen and Susan and Barbara and Karen. It was Karen's birthday the other day as well.
Oh, yes, it was.
Saw cheese and crackers. I look good.
I like cheese and crackers.
I think people are being far more imaginative about birthdays during lockdown.
Yes.
And how to make them special.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I do kind of like it. A cloudy but dry Renfrewshire. I can't say it properly.
Renfrewshire?
Yeah, I'll leave you to say that.
It's Scottish, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I really can't say it at all. But Alison's there. And I'm glad it's dry. That's what I'm going to say. It's not here. It's really not dry here at all. Only on a small screen this morning. Not working on YouTube. What? Hang on, tech buds upstairs. Not working on YouTube.
Maybe you need to refresh it.
Oh, I don't know. Now you see Carol says that we've been promoted to her big TV. Yeah, maybe some refreshing needs to happen. Susan, looking forward to this. So I'm going to shimmy on over there without further ado. There will be a gap. Do not adjust your sets. I'm going over there, socially distancing from Jane, who will then... and see you in a bit. Can you believe I put makeup on for that, Jane?
Well, has to be done, doesn't it?
Good morning, everybody. Everyone.
Good morning. Don't listen to a word of it. She's beautiful without her makeup as well. Right. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Goodness me.
Born ready.
We've taken ages, haven't we, making these blocks? You should have, by now, 9 blocks this size of various types, improving your skill level as you've gone.
Yeah.
And the very first block, and can you remember all that time back ago, we made the 9-patch blocks? Can you remember that?
Oh, are they the cornerstones?
These are the cornerstones, yes. Let's just pull this quilt up slightly. Can we see it? There we go.
Yeah.
Knock everything flying.
That's all right.
So this is the completed one with the binding and quilted and everything. And you'll see that these bits here were the very first block that we did when we learnt about measuring and cutting safely and accurately and making a very basic 9-patch block. All those months ago.
Gosh, how much has changed?
I know. And your skill level has vastly improved. I've seen the blocks on the Facebook posts and seen how people have, really improved, and it's lovely to see what everybody's doing. So now we're going to talk about how we then do this part here and join the blocks together. And make the quilt top. Now, I'm going to talk about making the complete quilt top, and then I'm going to talk about how we can do it in segments to do it as quilt as you go. So that makes it slightly less daunting for people that are quilting for the first time on their domestic machine. Now, I've done this on my domestic machine. It's feasible. A quilt this size is feasible to quilt.
Its finished size is 60 by 60, I want to say?
Yes, around about there.
Yeah.
So I would say this size quilt is achievable on a domestic machine, but it can be a little over-facing when it's your first quilt and you think, I'm never going to manage to do this. So we'll talk about a way of doing it quilt as you go that just makes it a little bit simpler.
Okay.
And a little bit less overwhelming.
Okay.
If I leave that there, we can still see it a little bit.
So Jane, my question, another person saying they can't watch it on YouTube, lot saying that they can, just refresh it. Refresh,
Yes,
and we
I
should
think
come...
that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Switch it off and switch it on again. That's the mantra. Works every time.
You've been talking to my IT department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their answer to everything, isn't it? Switch it off and switch it on again. Right, so you've got all your blocks. Lay them out in 3 by 3. So 3 blocks across, 3 rows down. Any way you want. Have a look at them, play with them, move them around. You don't have to do it in the same layout as I've done it. You may want to, and if you do, that's fine, but there's no rule that says you can't have a different block in the middle. If you've got a favourite block that you're really pleased with how it's gone together and you love the way that the pattern is, put that in the middle.
And that will be the focal point.
That'll be your focal point. That's the one that people see when they look at it straight away.
Yeah.
I've only done very basic quilting on mine, more or less 3 seams, maybe a little bit of a curve, because I didn't want to do anything too fancy because we're doing a beginner's quilt.
Yes.
And I didn't want to make it look like it was going to be too much.
No.
But if you're more experienced and you're doing this and you want to do a lot more quilting on it, then you can. It's your quilt, you can do what you like. You can take it to the long arm quilters and get them to do it if you really don't feel like you want to spoil it. You're not going to spoil it. There's no way you're going to spoil it. If your quilting's not too straight, it goes off the ditch, doesn't stay in the ditch, goes off the one side, is a bit wobbly, doesn't matter.
Do you know, for a quilt this size, who is actually going to notice that one little bit where you had a wobble?
Nobody's going to notice. And anybody that, you know, this is your first quilt, it's a learning process. There's going to be mistakes in it. There's going to be things that you'll look back on when you've done your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th quilt and you'll think, oh my gosh, look at the seams, how wide apart they are there, look at that quilting. Or you'll look at it and you'll be really proud because it's your first quilt that got you into doing patchwork and quilting. So
I look at my first quilts and if I look at them objectively, if I look at them with a critical eye, they're pretty dreadful and I love them.
Yes.
I don't care.
Perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely. And my kids love them. Yes. And I did them with fleecy backs because I didn't want to go through wadding and da-da-da-da.
This is it.
And my binding is utterly atrocious. Love it.
It doesn't matter, does it? The thing is, we're not doing this for competition. We're not doing it as a competition entry. We're doing it to learn. And you'll keep it for yourself or you'll give it to somebody. And whoever you give it to will love it because you made it for them.
Geraldine says, what size are the squares in the 9-patch?
The 9-patch squares are 6.5 inches, she says confidently. Yes, they are. 6 inches finished, 6.5 at this stage.
Cool.
We use 2.5 inch squares.
Right, let's have a conversation very quickly, Jane, about those people that have joined us after the demise of Sewing Quarter who might have missing blocks and missing fabrics and.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
We have put together, I think, Josh, bless him, has been working really hard, and I think he's put together a booklet with all the blocks in, hasn't he?
Yes.
And we've just been talking to Natasha this morning and I said, what about the people that have got the blocks but haven't got the squares and the sashing fabric? So I think we were talking about maybe putting block 1 with the completion instructions and the bundle of fabric together.
Yeah. We'll do some kind of mix and match because I don't want people to have to spend more than they need to get what they're missing.
That's right, yeah.
And it would be nice if you could have it in the same colours. So we'll work to that. So next month we will do a whole completion thing. If you would like to message us in the meantime and let us know if you are missing anything so we can get an idea on numbers, that would be really helpful.
Yes.
And that is info@natashamakes.com. SJ will be thrilled. Morning, SJ. Just in case you were bored.
Yeah, because nothing to do.
So yeah, info@natashamakes.com, and just let us know what you are missing and if there are any component parts that you would like us to get in. And Josh says that the booklet is coming, I promise. Well, stop watching this. Crack on. Bless him. He's
Because
been busy this morning.
What we did with the first block, when we did the first block on Sewing Quarter, we put a bundle together that included the fabric for the sashing. Although we only concentrated on the block, the bundle itself had the fabric for the sashing. So those people that have been with us from the beginning should have a load of pale blue and cream fabric left over from that first bundle.
Yes, as long as you haven't used it in anything else, because
Which
it's been
you
a few
can
months.
do, yeah, because you're like, oh, I know I've got a bit of cream somewhere.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes. So that happens. Right. So you will cut 12. She says confidently. Yes,
Would
12.
we say confidently?
12 of the blue strips and 24. Hold on. Rewind.
Maths.
We were just
Jane.
talking about this, weren't we? And
Yeah.
saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. 8 of the blue strips and 16 of the cream strips. 2.5 inches wide width of fabric.
If you have
It's all in the instructions.
you've got the instructions. If you have a stripology ruler,
Yes.
now is your
Godsend.
time
Yes.
to whip it out.
Yes.
And get cutting those 2.5 inch strips
That's
and
right.
make your life easy. You started out this journey without, and
Yes.
you now have. How much easier is it with or without?
It's much easier with. It's quicker and more accurate.
Yeah.
And it saves you time.
Yeah, can't buy time, but you can buy a stripology
You can
ruler.
buy a stripology ruler. It's an investment, and it's a worthwhile investment, particularly if you like doing jelly roll quilts and you want to use your own stash, because you can whip up your own jelly roll in seconds.
Yes, you can.
Right.
Love it. I've got
So-
a handful left. Everybody else appears to be sold out of them. I got in quick when I knew that the stocks were dwindling and got in an extra order.
Oh, well
So
done.
I do still have a handful left if anybody wants one.
Yes, very worthwhile investment, definitely. So you've got your strips, 2.5 inch wide strips. You're going to sew a blue strip to a cream one and then a cream one to the other side of the blue. So you've got cream, blue, cream, and press the seams towards the blue,
So to the dark side.
to the dark side. Then you're going to not tip over the extension lead.
Sorry.
That's
health
all
and
right,
safety.
it's me, I wasn't looking what I was doing. We're going to just level off, because you're going to have one end. If you join them together, level them up at the beginning, you'll end up with one end where it's all
It
uneven.
happens. It doesn't matter how well you sew.
No, and also because it never ceases to amaze me, you'll get fabric from the same collection.
Yeah.
It'll all be the same
Yep.
brand, everything else.
Yeah.
And they're all different widths of bolts. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you do. It's very rarely that you find a fabric where it's all the same size. So you're just going to line up your ruler. Now what I do is I line it up with the seam line. I don't look at this end here or this end here, because they can be a little bit wobbly with pressing and what have you. So I always line mine up with the seam line to get my straight edge this side. And I'm just bringing it to the shortest part. We can see here we've got little dots where the salvage is kept against the frame. So I always want to get rid of that, so I take it to those little dots, pinprick dots on there, cutting off the minimal amount really. So once I've done that, get rid of that piece, and then I'll turn it around so that then cut edge is on my left hand side because I'm right handed. Now you're going to need to cut 12.5 inch pieces. If you want to, just measure your blocks first. You may find your blocks have come out at 12 1/4. They may even be 12. Don't worry about it. I've got a hair here. That's it, it's gone.
You
There
are
it
not
is.
alone. We've all got lockdown hair.
It's going everywhere. So my block's 12 1/2, mostly. Some of them are a little bit less, some of them are a little bit more. Work on 12 1/2, but if you're really worried, measure your blocks. If you have a block that has come out drastically smaller than the rest of them, take some of your cream, if you've got some left over, or your ivory background, and just make what we call a coping strip.
I like that this is a thing.
Yes, it happens all the time, because if you think about it, when we first started patchwork and quilting, we were using scraps up, bits of offcuts of dresses and whatever we'd got to make quilts in those days. And some things would come out smaller than others. So a coping strip is like a border around your block. And if you use the same colour as your background, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to notice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a block that's a little bit smaller, add a little border around it.
No one's going to know.
No one's going to know.
Nope.
They'll think it's part of the design.
Yeah.
Even if your block comes out rectangular and not square, you can put 2 strips down the side or the top and the bottom to make it square. And don't think, if it's come out, let's say your block and you measure it and it's 11 3/4. Don't think, oh God, I've got to work out the maths here. Just make an 1.5 inch strip. Sew it all round and then cut your block down.
Make life easy.
Better to have cutting
Too
it
much.
down and make it fit than think, oh no, now I've got that wrong as well, and working out the maths. So
You can hear the self-talk, can't you?
Yes.
Oh, I got that wrong now
Yes.
as well. And da-da-da-da. Geraldine says, great tip.
if you have one of the 12 1/2 inch rulers, they work out really well, because you can line up the end of your ruler and pop it on there. They're usually wide enough, because this is 6 1/2, this width of strip. So your ruler would be 6 1/2.
I've given you a thinner one, haven't I? I've
Yeah.
just realised.
Don't worry. So this would be your ruler, and it would be 12 1/2, so it would be that width. So you can line up the end of your ruler there. Again, line up one of your lines with the seam there, and you can trim it down. Now what I did was, I didn't line it up with one of the dark ones, I lined it up with one of the white 1/4 inch ones, because then I got a little tiny bit of ruler above and below. So I knew that that was going to fit, and that makes it really nice. If you've got, if you don't feel confident with that because there isn't much ruler above and below, you would line your strip up on your cutting mat with the 0 line there, making sure it was straight with one of the lines, counting your 12 1/2 if you haven't got it measured, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, so that's the 12 line, and then put your 1/2 inch mark of your ruler on that 12 inch line. Again, take one of these lines and line it up with that seam, so you feel that you're straight, and then you can cut. And you've got a 12 1/2 inch piece there.
Now, Jane,
Yes.
where were these instructions for the sashing?
I have given them to Josh.
Oh, so people don't have them yet?
They don't have them yet.
Right, it's
We've
all right.
done
Karen just said, sorry, am I being thick? You said you have the instructions. Where?
No.
I have the original block and fabric, but no sashing instructions.
No, we've done an instruction sheet for this one that includes the completion with setting up the sashing,
right,
measurements and everything, and putting it together, and a little bit about the binding.
So this is the how to complete your block instructions, which
Yes.
are on the website www.natashamakes.com, underneath where you can watch us live, or if you just put in block of the month, they should come up. So that is your completing the quilt.
Completing
So
the
Karen,
quilt.
that is how you will find
Yes,
it.
sorry, I probably didn't make that clear. The instructions were just for that block.
I
on block
didn't
one.
realise that that was what was part of the completing the quilt, because I haven't read them yet.
No, well, that's okay.
Sorry everyone. Sorry.
We'll let you off because you've been very busy recently.
Well, you know.
So you're going to, from your strip, you're going to get 3 12.5-inch blocks. You have a nice piece there that you can do something with.
A checkerboard.
Whatever, yes. It might do a rail fence.
Rail fence,
I don't
yeah.
think it's quite square.
I was going to say you'd have
But
to...
it could make an interesting thing. You could just sew them all together and see what you got. Doesn't matter. Make a nice little liner's quilt or something. So you've got 3 of these pieces and you will have 16 of these blocks that you've made already if you've been with us from the beginning. You are now going to sew one of these sashing strips to one of these squares. And you will sew one square to the left-hand side of a sashing strip, lining up your squares, lining up the seams. Now what I've done, you just probably saw me turn that block round. This block, because I've done the twiddly bit with the seams there to flatten the seam, one of them has the seams facing in and one has it facing out. So if you turn your block, if you've done this method, so that the seams on the cream are facing out, because if you remember we pressed the seams in on the sashing strip, when you come to put those together, you can lock your seams.
Nice.
And that gives you a nice edge. Gives it nice, joins together nicely. Right, what am I pressing on here, Natasha, to get 1/4 inch?
Right hand side, 1/4 inch button. So top, not quite the top row. When you get this first stitching row,
yeah,
there's a 1/4 inch on the right hand side.
See it? Got it.
Yay!
Yay!
We have the technology.
It's just getting used to your own machine, isn't it? Because on mine it's a different number. It's 06.
Ah, yeah. So you'd be able to just type that in.
Yeah.
Susan, will I be getting more best pressing? I can do. I didn't realise that I'd sold out. So yes. Anne says, my very favourite teacher today, so calm and clear, and
Thank
always
you.
makes me feel I can do this.
You can do it.
She says she really loves the next project, which is the quilt on the wall. So that's a little something for
That's a little
those who would
teaser.
like it.
A little teaser for you. Right, so we're
Shirley,
going to do this 3 times. So we're putting the block on the left-hand side of the strip and we're sewing it 1/4 inch seam, and we'll do 3 of these. In your completed quilt, you will do this 12.
So Shirley wants to know, is there an instruction booklet for all the blocks and the sashing without the fabric? Next month, Shirley. All of that will come together next month. So next month is kind of...
We're going to
say
work
like-
on the binding next month, so we'll talk about the binding and the method of binding your quilt. So we're going to really go in depth with binding, because quite often binding is just like skimmed over.
We're not going to skim, are we, Jane?
We don't skim.
We do not skim.
So we're going to do the binding and then we'll talk about that lovely quilt behind us.
And also, Shirley, like I say, message us and let us know what it is you're missing, what it is that you need. If there are enough people that need the whole shebang, then maybe we do a compendium. So next month will be instructions for anyone missing stuff, kits for anyone missing stuff. Just let us know what you need. Sil says that Jane is great at explaining and demonstrating. Yes, she is.
Very kind. Thank you very much.
Karen thought she'd lost something, so she's glad that we clarified.
No, sorry, Karen, that was me not being very
it's us.
clear, I think.
Don't worry.
Oh, we didn't plug the iron in.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's
And
fine.
the pressing sheet is just there. The iron is just there.
I see that.
Do you know why I love that little iron? It's got a 2 metre lead on it.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, it goes a long way.
Rachel says, any chance of lavender best press? Rachel, it's stuck coming in from the States. It is. I've got it on back order. Leslie would like a compendium. and actually vanilla and something else I've got on back order as well, which sounds sickly but isn't. It's really just a light, delicate fragrance. So yeah, Rachel, it is. She's enjoying a Pano raisin right now. It is on back order, but there are some things that I am just struggling to get in from the States, and the shipments aren't coming in quite at the dates that they say that. Everybody's having the same right now. It's just trying to get stuff in from the States is problematic, and of course best press is something that comes in from the States.
Yeah, and we have to bear in mind, don't we, everybody's, working within limits at the moment, and it's not as easy to get stuff anymore, is it?
Susan says linen fresh best press and Mr. Spray Bottle. The spray bottles came off the ship yesterday, so if I put them up, I was cautious about putting them up on the website because I don't want people saying, oh, it took ages for it to come. I will happily put them up on the website if you know it's going to take a little while because it's just coming off the ship as we speak. So that's that. Heather, yes, that is a Tilda quilt behind Jane. That will be available to buy next month. We're just teasing you for now.
Just teasing.
Yeah.
So we've now got, I'm just doing one row here, but you will have made 12 of these. So we've got a sashing strip with a square on the left-hand side. On one of these strips now, we're going to add the other square to the other end. Okay?
Right, yes.
So we're putting that on. Now the more observant of you will notice that the blue on this square is a slightly different blue. That's my fault because I picked out the wrong one in the box and it was too late, and I thought, oh well, it doesn't matter, it's near enough. And it's a sample.
It's not the end of the world.
No. It's close enough.
Oh. My top tip that I would say to everyone this morning is pop stuff in your basket. Just bear with us because we're going to talk wadding, we're going to talk backing fabrics, we're going to talk binding. And just hang fire and I can get hold of more of most things. So if I haven't loaded enough on the website, then don't panic because I have checked with the warehouses and they do have extra. So don't panic. Once stuff sells out, we can just reassess and get some more on there. But just don't check out yet because we haven't, I don't want you to have like double postage charges or anything like that. So just bear with us. We're going to talk wadding and bindings and stuff in a minute.
So I've just realised I've pressed these not the wrong way, but the way I didn't want to press them.
Right.
So I would recommend to you that you press these so that the seam goes towards the square. This will make sense later on when we come to add in the strip with the blocks. Because it's all about making life a little bit easier for you and nestling your seams.
Oh,
So
Erica's
there
taken the plunge and bought herself the Stripology XL.
Well
Yay,
done,
you're
well
gonna
done.
love it.
So we've got now, we'll have, for this row, we've got 2 with the block on the left-hand side, and then we've got 1 sashing strip with a block on each side. Take these 2 strips and sew them together so that you've got block, sashing strip, block, sashing strip. So you're going to sew this seam here together. And again, nestle up the seams if you can, if you've pressed them the way that it will work.
I'm getting people's shopping lists here. Vanilla, please. Yes, the compendium, please, and the materials too. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
How much fabric will I need to finish the quilt? And we're getting there. Hang fire. We are getting there. We're going to talk you through all of it. Don't worry. Yes, please, on the bottle spray. And lovely to see you both. Lovely to see everybody too. Oh, it helps if I actually change the buttons over. There we go.
So we've now got that. So we've got square, sashing strip, square, sashing strip. So we're then going to put this piece with the 2 squares onto the end there. And basically what we're working on is that we have a square, a sashing strip between each square, but we need to have 4 squares and 3 sashing strips. And this will make this row along the top there.
Very good.
And you're starting now to get a great big piece of fabric, which sort of, you start to think, oh gosh, it's getting big now. This is getting real.
Yeah, it's getting serious.
Yes. Now the method I'm showing you at the moment is how to do the whole quilt all in one go. When we come to the quilt as you go method, it's slightly different. The same, but just slightly different. And
Same but different.
yes,
Yeah.
you get the same effect, but you just construct it slightly differently. So that is the strip for there. And you'll make 4 of those, because you have 1 at the top, and then 2 in the middle, and then 1 at the bottom. So you want 4 strips like this.
So,
So
Anne,
that's that.
Anne's concerned that she's missed something here. No, so Anne, this fabric, if you started at day 1 with Jane, then you will have leftover fabrics to do this, to do these strippy bits. We haven't talked about the wadding, we haven't talked about the binding, we haven't talked about the backing, ... yet. What you lost?
I don't know. I thought I got more pieces, but I've obviously miscalculated somewhere or left a piece at home. Doesn't matter. We'll work with it. So your first row, you'll have laid your blocks out in the order that you want them in. So your first row is, we'll work with the row that we can see.
Heather, have I managed to get the Prim irons yet? Yes, they've been reserved for me. I'm going to have to do a little trip to London to go and collect everything. So bear with me. I have secured some, and Prim turning through tools as well. Yay! So yeah, bear with me. Yeah. I have got them, but they're not physically here yet, so I haven't put them up on the website yet.
So you're going to take one of your sashing strips and you're going to sew it to the left-hand side of your block. And again, it's pretty much the same way as we've constructed the strip in between with the squares. You work your way along, sewing 1 sashing strip to the left-hand side of each block.
If you bought the Cape quilt wool, you can always pop it up on there.
Yes.
And then just take down the bits as and when you
As you
need to.
need them.
Just yeah.
I recommend, if you've got the space, to have it lying out. You know, if you've got it on a design wall, or if you've got it on your bed or on the floor or whatever, just keep it laying out while you put it together, just so that you can keep putting it back in place and checking that it's in the right place. Now this time we're going to press the seam so it goes underneath the sashing strip.
Right. Elizabeth says it's like a post and fencing panels.
Yes.
You can tell how much fun my life is from that. I would say essential.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yep.
So we keep going, sewing each one to the left-hand side. Now this is where, I don't know why I haven't got, I don't know what I've done. I've thought I'd brought enough, but I've obviously left one somewhere.
Oh, what happens? I drop stuff out my bag all the time. I'm pretty sure I'm like Hansel and Gretel and just leave a little trail of quilting goodies.
I think we've come unthreaded.
Have we? Do you want me to come and thread it?
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, it's no problem at all.
Step to the side.
Step to the side. It's the joy of somebody else's machine, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go.
While you're doing
You
that,
go-
I'm just going to go that way
Okay.
and have a look in my bag to see if I have lost a strip somewhere.
Well, let's dance. Dee 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 dee. I love this machine because it is so easy and quick to rethread. I've got a show coming up on Hochanda with the NX7. So I've actually got to get, I've got so used to having this as my little workhorse. I've got to actually get the beast out, and which is not
That's going to be
hardship, is it?
exciting. No, I haven't come without it. Never mind.
Do you want me to whiz something up quickly?
We'll work with it. We'll go with it. It's okay. I
We'll
can still show how it goes
improvise.
together.
Yeah. Okay, let's dance.
It happens, doesn't it? You think you've packed your bag and then it's not right. Never mind.
Always. Always.
So what I'll do is I'll just, we'll do this one and we'll pretend this is like, well, we'll do it with this one actually, because this is the one at the end. So we'll imagine that we've got a sashing strip on that one. And we're going to put the sashing strip on the left-hand side of this one, which is the end row. And sometimes you'll find that the edge of your quilt isn't level. And you just sort of fudge it, make it fit. Just because you want, you know, if it's less than quarter of an inch, less than an eighth of an inch, you can get it in there and it'll, or you might just lose the edge of your, you know, the point of your triangle. Again, we're not making a competition winning quilt here, so we won't lose too much sleep over it.
Jane,
Yes,
is it your birthday in 12 days' time?
it could well be.
Susan says happy birthday
Oh, bless her.
to my best mate. She is simply beautiful inside and out. I couldn't have gotten through lockdown without her texts of support.
Oh,
Do you know what? We've all had that friend, haven't we?
Yeah, we've been texting each other every day, like, what are you doing today? Well, I've cleaned out the pantry. Yeah.
These and other exciting things. It's like being a 1950s housewife again, isn't it?
Getting all excited because you've got a nice clean pantry. And you can actually find stuff in there now. So you will have 3 blocks with your sashing strip on the left-hand side, and one of the end ones, whichever end one you want to have, you will put a block on the opposite side.
Okay.
Just like we did with the squares, really, with the squares on the sashing strip, but this time you're using your sashing strips.
Susan says it's your age. It's you. Why are you getting forgetful?
Yeah, definitely.
Rude.
It's only because she's younger than me.
She can get away with it.
She can get away with it.
Oh yeah, and Susan Malcolm Davis says I tend to find what I've lost when I'm not looking for it. Always, always, always the way.
Yeah, definitely.
And Maddie says she's over the moon. Just ordered Jane's instructions and saw the Tilda backing fabric I've been looking for to complete the Tilda quilt I've been working on during lockdown. Says Maddie. Yes. So Maddie, yeah, I've got all 3 colourways back in stock, which I'm pretty thrilled about. And it is gorgeous because it's the super wide 108 inch.
Oh, lovely.
Doobity 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 gorgeous stuff.
I do like the extra wide because it just saves time and you don't have to worry about a seam in the middle and all sorts of things.
I did a market tote pattern to use with extra wide backing.
Ooh,
so you just
nice.
get your ½ metre of your extra wide. And I have to say, they always know, because I put all of the orders in and take them down to the post office in them.
Yes.
And they always know which are my bags, which is just as well because I do drop and go. But they're always like, oh, this is a pretty bag. I was like, thank you very much.
So once you've got those with the sashing strip on the either side, you're going to join again. We'll join, this one will have a sashing strip on. We'll join those 2 together and then we'll join that one on the end.
Yes.
Now I do it in pairs and then the last one. I don't go do that. I don't sew it in rows just because I think sometimes that can drag it down.
I'm with you, yes.
If you just do it in chain piecing.
Yeah.
So it just keeps it in small compact pieces to join it. And so you'll do 3 rows like that. So you'll have this, or you would have if you have all the pieces. I don't know what I've done, miscalculated.
Is it underneath the quilt?
I don't think so.
Because that's the other option.
No, I think I just didn't put it in. Anyway. It happens.
You haven't been wafting it around here anyway, have you?
I don't think so. I think I'm, had a brain, whatever, and
I think you're
forgot.
allowed.
So you'll have 4 sashing strips. So you're going to have you'll have 3 rows like this,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll have 4 rows like that.
Hurrah.
So you then take what will be your top row of blocks, and you sew the sashing strip on to the top of there.
Yes.
And you'll sew one onto the top of each of your rows of blocks. But the last row, you sew one onto the top and onto the bottom.
Right, I'm with you.
So you will have 2 rows that look like this, with one lot of sashing at the top, and then you'll have 1 row that's got one at the top and the bottom, and that's your bottom row. So you then join the 2 rows together and then join the last row with the 2 sets of sashing strip together.
Right,
So
perfect
it gives
sense.
you,
Du-du-du-du-du.
I've got 3 quilts here now, it gives you all of this. So this is your quilt top. So you've got, this is row 1, sashing strip, row 2, sashing strip, row 3, sashing strip at the top and sashing strip at the bottom.
Nice.
So when you join them together, that's your quilt top. So quilting this now is quite straightforward. If you've got the extra wide fabric, you don't have to worry about joins in it. So you'll put that down on a surface, whether I do mine on the floor, but I know some ladies can't get down onto the floor, or if they can get down, they can't get back up again.
Not get back up. Last scene.
It gets
Stuck
harder.
on the floor.
What I do is I put my backing fabric down, right side facing to the floor with the wrong side facing up. I masking tape it down onto the surface. I've got a hardwood floor.
Right.
If you're on carpet, you might want to pin it. But how I pin it or tape it down is I start from the middle. If we imagine this is the backing fabric, I will tape it from the middle of the side. Go to the opposite side, pull it taut but not stretching it, tape that down, and then do the sides, middle of that side again, just pulling it but not stretching it, so it's nice and tight. Don't go from the corners, because if you go from the corners, you're working on a bias and it'll distort it.
Yeah.
So once I've got the north, south, east, west on, I then work from the middle and tape it down to the corner, keeping it taut as I go. So that's the backing down. I then put the wadding on top.
Yes.
And the wadding and the backing are the same size. And I think we've cut 70-inch pieces,
We've
haven't
cut
we?
70-inch pieces, and I realise that makes it slightly awkward with regard to backing fabric, because the backing fabric, we've got basically 2 sorts of backing fabric. Alistair, House of Alistair backing fabric, which is about anywhere between 146 to 150 inches, which isn't quite enough, given that this will end up being about 60 inches. So you have options. You can.
We've worked it so that you've got 5 inches either side.
With the 70,
With the 70.
But 60 inches is 150 centimetres,
Yes.
and his fabric is 150 centimetres, give or take a centimetre wide. So we just
You may need to add a strip to it.
Yeah.
If you have ordinary width fabric,
Yeah.
you would need 3 metre piece.
Right.
And you would cut it in half, so you've got 2 1.5 metre pieces, trim the selvage off and join it down what would be the selvage edge, and then you'd have a seam. Don't place the seam in the middle of the quilt, offset it, make it go up a little bit or down a little bit or to the side a little bit.
Okay, what's that?
You tend to fold a quilt in half, and that is a weak point where your seam is. It's a weak point, so a continual folding it,
Yeah.
eventually that line of stitching will weaken and may come apart.
Gosh, I
may
hadn't
come
thought
apart.
of that. Yeah.
I'm not saying, within a couple
Yeah.
of weeks it'll split open, but over time
Yeah.
it's a weak point.
Yeah.
So offset it so that where you would fold it, it wouldn't be folded on the same line.
Your other option is the Tilda super wide, which is 108 inches. That's 270 centimetres. So you would then have a load left over for smaller lap quilts or or my bag, or
Yes.
you know, whatever.
If you got yourself a 2 metre piece of that, you'd have plenty enough, and you'd have more, and you'd have a leftover for something else.
Yeah.
So that would be a good option. What you could do with with Alistair's 150 wide is you could split it down the middle and just put a strip of fabric down the middle of it
Oh,
at
and
about
make-
10-inch wide. Just make a feature of it,
Yeah.
a nice piece of pattern or a bit of something that you've made with the leftover pieces of this.
The
Just
thing
something
is,
to make it down pretty.
so the most cost-effective way actually is Alistair's. That is your cheapest option if we're looking at that. So if you bought twice the amount and took a strip, like you're saying,
Yeah.
then actually you'd have enough to back a slightly smaller quilt.
Yes.
You know, you still would. So that
Yes.
would, it's not about using it all up in one go when it comes down to backing fabric, because
No.
very rarely does it all just go, oh, and this measurement is exactly right.
No,
It just doesn't
You're
happen.
always going to have fabric left over, which, you know,
Yeah.
as we know, goes into our stash that we're going to use someday. But
Absolutely. Someone keeps asking, that sounds really rude, doesn't it? There have been many a question about wadding. We are going to cover that. Don't worry,
Yes.
we're going to cover that. And we've also
So-
been cutting it for you as well.
yeah, so we've got the backing stretched out. We put the wadding on the top. Now, we've got cream coloured fabric, so I think unless you've got black wadding, it's going to be fine whatever you use. I am a favour 80-20 wadding. 80% cotton, 20% polyester, just because it has a minimal shrink rate. I think it's about 5%. And because I never wash my fabric first, I think, well, if I do wash it, it'll hopefully all shrink together and it'll look okay. Some people like the antique look where it pulls in and it does all wrinkle up slightly, and that's a preference. I don't mind either way. Polyester is great. It's the cheapest option. It's good for children's quilts because they get washed more often and it doesn't shrink. And it tends to be white, so if you've got a white background, polyester is a really good one to have, although you can get the cotton blends that are white coloured. What else have we got? Cotton, 100%
We've got
cotton.
cotton. That actually, the 100% cotton that I've got, for certainly the first batch, the second batch has to come from another supplier because I've used up all of the stuff from that one, is only a 3% shrink rate.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
really
which
good.
is really good.
Yeah,
And again, you can quilt that 10 inches apart, because that's the other thing, isn't it, to
Yes.
consider, is how far apart you want it, how you want it to hang.
yes.
We also have bamboo, plain bamboo, and bamboo blend.
Nice. Lovely.
So the bamboo is great if you are hypoallergenic.
Yes, it's sustainable and it works for hypoallergenic, so it tends to be okay for people with allergies to
Yeah.
cotton or polyester
And
fibres.
the bamboo blend is a bamboo cotton blend. So again, all natural fibres.
Natural fibres that will react the same way when washed.
Yeah.
The cotton is very nearly creme de la creme. It's got a lovely weight to it and it's got a real warmth to it,
Yeah.
and is soft, nice
Yeah.
drape. Polyester tends to be a bit rigid, but over time with washing it gets softer and has a nicer drape to it.
So we've got all of these options up on the website. We are cutting these to 70 by 70 for
Yeah.
you. So you don't have to feel daunted because I know that not everybody has that cutting space to cut such huge things.
Yes.
We hoovered everywhere this morning, laid everything out and went at it with my electric scissors, because that's the easiest way for us
Yes.
to do it. And so because we can, we have for you. So everything that you'll see up on the website where it says 70 inches by 70 inches, we are cutting that specifically for you. So here's the thing, at the warehouse, because obviously there are a huge number of you doing Block of the Month, for which we are very grateful, thank you.
Definitely are, yes.
But obviously to have those hundreds and hundreds of backing fabrics here and waddings here, the warehouse that I get them from has them put aside for me. And also I didn't know who was going to want what. So I didn't want to buy in like 200 of each and bankrupt myself. So there will be a slight delay whilst it's all reserved for me whilst I just get it over here in the next couple of days, get it cut and get it out to you. So,
Yeah.
you know, it might take like
In
10
time
days.
for you to finish sewing your top together.
There you go. There you go. So you don't have to do everything
No,
all at
in one
once.
go. So that's and then you will put your quilt top on top of the wadding.
Yes.
And you will start, I pin. For a quilt this size, I wouldn't bother using the spray based. I would just lay it out, lie it down and pin it. Spray based is great for small projects, but for a project like this, by the time you've lifted it up, put it under your machine, gone round, say, the centre block, it'll have started to unstick around the edges. It is a temporary adhesive.
Right,
And
because I spray based everything.
Some people do. They like to do sort of belts and braces, so they'll spray based and they'll pin, and that's fine. It's a preference, you know. It's how you feel, and there's no right or wrong.
And that is on the website as well.
Yeah.
So that the spray basting stuff, I use it for a lot of things, not just.
I use it for small projects because I don't then have to pin it.
Yeah.
Because for us, and I'll show you when we do the block of the quilt as you go, how we can spray baste it.
I've got it in 250ml and 500ml.
Ooh,
it is
lovely.
most cost effective at the 500, but if you're just starting out and you just want to try it, then I've got the 250ml in for you.
And the 250ml will do you 2 or 3 quilts.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
there's plenty in there.
Yeah,
it's not like you're going to need a whole can for one quilt. So when you come to pin it out, it's a bit like when you're taping your backing down. Start from the middle. Lay your quilt top out, smooth it down with your hands, smooth it from the middle out, making sure you will give your quilt top a press. This is a bit rumpled up because it's been folded, but you'll give it a press before you place it on your wadding. You'll then smooth it out, and from the middle you will pin in the middle, and you will go from east to west and then from north to south. So you've got a cross shape of your pins.
So actually just follow the lines of the blocks.
Working with, and I tend to go a palm's width apart, about 4 inches.
Okay.
3 to 4 inches apart. And you can work it. So, I mean, when I come if I came to pin this, I wouldn't pin it exactly in the middle. I would be pinning it probably there, in a space where I'm not going to have to quilt over it to start with, and then put the next pin in there and the next pin in there, and then probably this side, one in the middle of that block there, and so on. It doesn't have to be exactly straight is what I'm trying to say, but trying to keep a straight line.
Can I get a heads up as to how many of you need quilting pins? Because I was just about to order them when we came to air, because it was the one thing I forgot. I'm really sorry. So if you let me know if you want pins, like I say, the best press, the spray adhesive, the 505, I've ordered.
Yeah. Quilting pins, because some people might be thinking, what's she talking about, quilting pins?
It looks like you sat on it.
Yeah.
Don't sit on it.
They're bent pins. I'm going to do a close-up on them.
Oh yeah, go to the machine, Jane. We have the
we have
technology. Look at this. Oh no, we have the technology if I press the right button.
Let me see if I bring that up a little bit. There we go. You can see that it's bent.
Yes, it's meant to be.
They're meant to be, because if we go back to the quilt, when you go through your 3 layers, you don't want to have to lift your quilt up to get the pin through. So the reason they're bent, and this is why you don't do your pinning on your best mahogany table, and I do mine on my laminate floor because it doesn't really matter. You push the pin in, and then you rock it back and push it, and it will come out without moving anything, and it'll pin through the 3 layers, and then you just hold it together.
Right.
So they're specifically designed for quilting so that you don't have to lift the 3 layers together and push it through. So it's just a rocking action. You push it in, rock it back, and then push it, and it'll just pop up and it'll pin through those 3 layers and hold them securely. You can tack, and if you want to tack big stitches, get a biggish needle, and if you get a curved needle, even better, and you'll start from the middle again and you'll work your way through, just doing big stitches, tacking stitches through the 3 layers. If you're doing tacking with thread, you might want to tack the lines slightly closer together than 3 inches. You may want to do 2.
Yeah.
just because it holds it a little bit better. So once you've got that north, south, east, west cross in the middle, you'll then work from the middle, pulling it down, using your hand like an iron. Again, you're pulling it flat, but you're not stretching it. So you're pushing down and you'll pin as you go down. And now you can either work in that quarter there, you can work from the middle down, or you work from the middle across. And you keep going across, smoothing it down, using your hand like an iron. And if you've got hot hands, it works really well, because you really do get to smooth it out.
Well, I'd
So
be
working
rubbish
from
then.
the middle to the outside, it smooths it down and keeping it nice and flat.
So it's actually a good idea to have a cup of tea to wrap your hands round and
Yes.
then smooth.
I mean, you've got the wadding under there, and that helps to hold it. It's got a little bit sort of, the fluffiness of the wadding sort of makes a sort of an adhesion, a bit like fuzzy felt type thing. But you can smooth it, and you'll see. But try not to pull it too tight,
Right.
because if you pull it too tight, and when you pin it, when you come to quilt it, and you take the pins out, it'll bunch up.
Jane, my next question. I'm just ordering the safety pins for everybody because
Yes.
everyone's gone, yes, we need safety pins.
Pins.
How many do I need for a quilt this size?
Do they come in 150 packs?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one pack, possibly two,
Okay.
would do it for a quilt this size.
Okay.
I mean, you could see my box. It's an industrial box, and I think there's 600 in there or something silly. So that's if you're going to do the whole quilt, or as I said, if you really feel overwhelmed by it, you could take it to your local long arm quilter, and they'll quilt it for you. And 4 inches, I think I'm right in saying 4 inches is the minimum extra width that they'd want for a long arm.
Right. Okay.
I think they like it a bit wider than that all the way round, but I think they can work with 4 inches. If Amanda's watching, she might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. So, quilt as you go. We're going to break the quilt down into blocks, and we'll do each block as an individual block, and we add the sashing on. So I've done, this is the middle one of the one I've got at the moment. So you can see that what I've done is I've attached the strip to the left hand side of my block, and I've done just a square and a sashing strip together, and then I've sewn those to the top of the block. So I've got it just on the one side of the block. And then the one at the far end, where we would have attached 2 sashing strips either side, you can see I've done that, and then the sashing strip with the 2 squares along the top. These are spray basted, but I have pinned round the edge just to hold it, because I knew I was going to be moving it around quite a bit. I have just left 1 inch all the way around on these ones.
Right. Okay.
Not so much, because we're going to trim one side down.
Okay.
So let's just talk about how I've achieved that. Again, I cut my backing to, I measured the block, cut the backing down 1 inch wider all the way around. Press that so it's nice and flat. Take your wadding and the spray based. Are you happy if I spray in here?
Yeah, that's fine.
The spray based, spray onto your wadding. Don't spray onto your fabric. The fabric will just absorb the liquid and make it go all gloopy and sticky and wet, and you'll never get it flat. It'll stretch and all sorts of things. Do you get an idea that I've done that? So a nice
and
even,
also don't spray it on your carpet,
No,
because
it
I
sticks,
might have had to have washed my carpet before now after doing
Yes.
that.
because then all the dog hairs stick to it and the footprints and everything else. So then lay that, your wadding will be cut the same size as your backing. Lay that on the top and just smooth it on the top there. Turn it over and take your backing and smooth it down. Again, from the middle out, just smoothing it down, making sure there's no big wrinkles in it, creases, whichever. Once you're happy with that, then spray the top. Just a very fine mist. Do it in a well ventilated area and try not to breathe in while you're doing it, because it's a bit and then place your piece of quilting, piece of patchwork on the top and just smooth that out again from the middle outwards. So, quilting it. If you've got the whole quilt top done, you've laid it out and you're going to start quilting it, I recommend that the first thing you do is quilt through the blocks. So go through either side of the sashing strip, along, down and then across, or across and then down. It doesn't matter which way around you do it. Always start from the same side. So if you start at the top, when you come to the bottom of it, don't think, oh right, I'll just turn around and go back up. It just moves your fabric slightly and you'll end up with a little bit of a wrinkle. It doesn't matter, but that's what will happen. It will just move it slightly. So go from the top to the bottom, stop, and then come back up to the top and go down again. Go through those blocks and that'll work. So quilting in the ditch, when I do my quilting, I take my stitch length up to about 3.5. Not too big, but bigger, because actually your quilting is decorative as well as functional. So you do want to see the stitching. It's part of it. So on this one, I'm going to sew down here and across there to start with.
Right, that is quilting pins bought. Emma will load them to the website ASAP.
Now you can use your walking foot as a gauge. Some people have got walking foot that are open and some have got walking feet that are a bit closer together.
Right.
But you'll know when you see it where, actually I haven't got this back in the middle. If I want it back in the middle, is it on one?
Yeah.
That's it. So if you place it back in the middle, you'll see on this foot here, there's a little notch there. You can see that that's the notch there, and you can see that that's lined up with the seam line there. So my needle will be up against that seam. When you do in the ditch, when you've pressed your seams to one side,
Yes.
one of the fabrics is slightly higher than the other. Fraction of a thread, but it's slightly higher. So when you're quilting in the ditch, aim for the lower fabric, because then your seam will hide that layer of stitching. You don't have to. If you want to see the layer of stitching, you can just stitch on top of that edge.
Okay.
There. And if you feel that your stitching is wobbly, and we all wobble occasionally.
Or after lockdown, a lot of us wobble a bit more.
Yeah. You'll find that you might prefer to stitch on top of the seam, because it's less daunting than trying to keep in the ditch.
Of course, yes.
But you'll be able to use your quilt foot, and all of the quilting on this quilt has been done with a walking foot, because you can do gentle curves with a walking foot, and you can do different things. You can do echo quilting where you go around the outside edge. I think I did that on the card trick one, yeah. I just used the edge of the foot and came and put the edge of the foot against the seam line here, so my line of stitching was consistently that distance away from each block. I've used variegated thread on this one. When it comes to quilting, thread-wise, use a slightly weightier thread, but it doesn't matter if you use the same thread as you use for your piecing. I tend to use 60 weight, because I use Metla thread. I use a 60 weight for my piecing because it's finer, or 50 if it's Aurifil. And then I'll use a 50 Metla thread or a 40 Aurifil for my quilting.
Right.
Just because, I mean, when I say it's a thicker thread, you can't really tell the difference when you're looking at them, but it just sits a little bit prouder on your fabric, so it gives you, again, it's that pattern, gives you the pattern. So, as I say, with the quilting, you do really want to see the stitch. You know, it's decorative as well as functional, as holding the 3 layers together.
Function and form.
Yes. And as with the quilt as you go, you can you've got more control. You're working with a smaller piece, so you feel a little bit more, particularly as a beginner, you'll feel a little bit more in control because you won't have a great big bunch of quilt under your machine. If you're going to do it all in one go, which is perfectly feasible, you start off all neatly rolled up. You'll roll it either side from the middle into the middle so that you can see the middle bit. When you quilt in the blocks, I always recommend starting from the middle and then working your way out. You'll start with it all neatly rolled up, but by the time you get to the halfway through, you're just scrunching it and pushing it through. Well, you don't push it, you just let the machine feed it through, but you feel like you're pushing it. And you'll wear some of it on your shoulder and you'll feel like you're going to get smothered by your quilt. But it's easy to do, and you'll get into a rhythm and you'll get into a method that suits you. There's all different ways of doing it. Some people use quilted clips to hold their quilt together while they're quilting, you know, while it's rolled up.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of different ways of doing it.
Well, there are, aren't there? You know, different manufacturers have come up with different things.
Yes.
As well. So
there's
it's
all
all
sorts
good.
of gadgets out there to help
There are.
you. The walking foot is called a walking foot because it walks across the fabric, and it's not designed for whizzing. You really shouldn't go much faster than I'm going now with a walking foot. It doesn't do it any good at all to go fast. And of course, if you go fairly slowly, you're in quite good control. So I've gone through that side and that side.
Hang on. There we go.
And so what we would do is we would quilt through this bit and this bit and that bit and that bit, and that would hold that. And then you can work on your block. Now for this one, I tend to, when I'm doing my blocks, I tend to look at the longest row of stitching I can do before I have to stop.
Right, okay, so you're quite economical.
Yes, so I would probably start here, go down to there, come up there and go across and then come back to there. So that's all one stitch. Or I could go across there, come up there, get to the middle, go up, across and come down and then to there. And I think I'm going to do that. And I'll just do that for now. I mean, I would probably add a bit more quilting to this block and maybe do a gentle curve just to give it a bit of movement, because it's quite a solid block and there's quite a lot of space in there. So I'm just doing in the ditch on this one. So I'll go right across the middle there.
It is a really manageable size, isn't it?
Yes.
Really manageable.
It is. You certainly feel more in control, I think, when it's this sort of size.
Angie Atwood's just joined us, which made me think, actually, if you were doing it like this, why not, if you've got westerly rulers,
yes,
why not put a little...
play with those.
Yeah,
you
have a
get
little
some
play with
lovely
those.
effects.
Morning, Angie. And Colette says, hi, Natasha. Please could you ask Jane which is the best thread for hand quilting? Ooh.
Again, I would go with a 40 count for, you know, traditional hand quilting. If you want to do big stitch quilting, you can use an embroidery thread or a perlé thread and get the big stitches, which gives you a lovely effect. Yeah, you can quilt with exactly the same thread as you would use on your machine.
And Lorraine said, what do you mean by gentle curve?
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you. I'll just.
And Sil would like a close-up once the quilting is done. We can do that.
Yeah, we can
do
show that. You can see the wobbly stitches. So if I was going to do a curve on here, a gentle curve. Now what you can do, you can use your fabric marker. Got a fabric marker?
Many a fabric marker there.
Marker there. if you wanted to, you could take your ruler and you could think, well, I'm going to have it coming out, I don't know, about 1/2 inch out. So approximately the middle of that, it's 3.5, it's 4. So at about 2, which is there, I would measure 1/2 inch and just put a little mark there. And that's just a guide. The thing is, with your fabric marker, it'll disappear, won't it? It'll wash away or iron away or fade away in
Disappeared
time.
somehow. Yeah.
So it's a guide. It's not a point to hit. And if you don't hit it, it's not the end of the world. It's just a guide. That's how far I want my curve to come out. I might not get there. I
It's
might go
okay.
past it. It's fine.
No one knew. You are the designer here.
This is it.
Now, Patricia says that she always finds it difficult to stitch in the ditch. I don't think you're alone there. And I think
And
that
it's, again, it's like all forms of quilting. It's practice. And as I say, if you don't like stitching in the ditch, don't. Go just outside.
when I first started quilting, I'll be honest, I used to try to stitch in the ditch, and then I realised that actually sometimes my points didn't meet.
Yes.
So actually I started stitching, like echo stitching, just slightly to one
Yeah.
side, and then it didn't matter.
Doesn't
Oh,
matter.
it's such a relief. Such a relief.
As we've been stitching this, probably people have noticed that the points don't meet in the middle of this one. If I lift this up to there, you can see my in the ditch here is a little bit really close to the ditch there, and then it comes out a little bit. And then this bit here, because the thread's slightly darker, I don't want it on the lower side of this one because it's really going to show. So I've gone on top of the seam there, just on top, and that works just as well. So, you know, in the ditch, it's a nice thing to do, and it doesn't show as much, so it accentuates your fabrics and the shape of your patchwork. But if you want to do it on the top, that works just as well.
Yeah.
So there's no rules. You do your quilting whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Now, Heather says, what about wool for wadding?
Wool is beautiful. It's got a lovely weight to it. It stays cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It's just a price point because it is the most expensive. But, you know, it's the best thing to use.
Heather, if you want wool, message me and I will source it for you. I haven't got it up on the website, but if anybody does want wool, it will be something that I will source in specially for you, because like I say, it is more expensive.
It's more expensive, but it's
I mean, there was talk
investment.
about silk wadding on here as well. I mean, I dread to think how much silk wadding is.
Yes. Again, it's another natural fibre, isn't it? And as we all know, silk has a high price point, so
Of course.
it's reflected. So I've made that mark. So I'm just going to take my walking foot towards that mark, just going by eye and gently moving my piece of fabric and then coming back to the point there. And that gives you a nice
Can you just point
movement.
to that, or just...
Let me just go down to back to the middle,
Okay.
and then we can take it. That's it. If I go, I'll just do it on the opposite side as well, and then we can see. So I'll come back down this one and I'll do it again so that we can do it again. Again, you know, the accuracy of the curves, nobody, unless they're being judged in a competition, is probably going to get a protractor out and make sure your curves are all exactly the same size and got exactly the same curve to them. So it is a case of doing it by eye and seeing how it goes. And, you know, let's not forget that if you really don't like it, you can unpick it. And the beauty of quilting is because it's a longer stitch, it's quite easy to unpick. I'll just go down this other side and then we're back into where we started. And I'll show you then about finishing off the ends. Sticking your tongue out or biting your lip is obviously compulsory towards,
I stick it out.
yeah.
Luckily, you're on a close-up, so no one can
Yeah.
see, Jane, what you're doing
What
right
I'm
now.
doing. Now you'll see that I've taken the thread. I haven't cut the thread off with the machine. I've taken the thread about 2.5, 3 inches length there, and I'll go underneath, and I'll do the same with the bobbin thread, just to give me something to tie off.
Right, are we
So
showing?
we'll show this.
Yeah.
I'll show the one with the mark on, and then you'll be able to see it. There was the mark there, and I actually hit that quite well.
Yeah, good
so
job.
I just came. Anybody think I'd planned it? Just came out, aimed towards that mark, and then started to go back in. Again, it is practice. You might find you get to here and you think, oh no, I haven't got enough time to get back in, and it might come in a bit further in there. It's not the end of the world. But you can see it gives it a little bit of a movement to your shape if you do a curve, particularly this one because it's a windmill block, so that sort of gives that nice, helps the sort of movement of it.
Yeah, it gives it a 3D. Yeah.
And if you wanted to, once you've got to there, there's nothing to stop you to go back and echo that and give it a bit more shape to it, and then come back down here and go back up. There's all sorts of things you can do. You could, if you wanted to, let's get the marker pen here. Use this shorter ruler, that makes it easier. If you wanted to, from this one here, if you measure across there and it's 6 inches, if you wanted to, you could do an inch, an inch, an inch, an inch, and an inch. And from that middle bit, you could quilt from here, you could go down to there, go across, and come back up to the middle. You can draw these lines on.
Jane, could you move
Go
it
back
across ever
down.
so slightly?
Just across
No,
here,
other way.
other way, that way.
Fab. Thank you.
So from there, from that middle point to that inch mark there, so across there, come back up. You'd have marked this with the ruler before you started sewing. Go down, go across to that one, come back up, go down, sew across there, and then you'd come back up there. And again, that gives you another effect. You could go from this point and you could sew from that point there. Oops, if you do it straight, because it would come to there because that's your seam allowance. And again, you could work this way. So you could go across there and then come down to the middle point again. And you could do it like this. And again, that will give you another effect. You could do your curve on this side, on this one. So you could come round like that. And you could also do the curve there and there. You know, it's all a different quilting effect. If you wanted to, you could go just slightly inside here and just echo that bit there and then go into the ditch. If you wanted to on this one, you could come in following your 1/4 inch or even wider, and you could do like a Greek key type effect. So it comes like this.
Oh, nice.
And again, that gives you another effect. And it's all done with the walking foot. So, you know, you could get some really nice. And the thing with a piece this size is you can have a little play. And
Yeah, you can really experiment, can't you?
experiment, because you're not trying to wield a great big piece of quilt around.
Can we also clarify if you have your quilting foot on, feed dogs are up?
Yes.
Lots of questions.
Yes.
saying-
No, I don't put the feed dogs down unless I'm doing free motion quilting. And then sometimes I don't even do that. but that's another story.
Oh,
controversial.
cats and pigeons,
Yes.
Jane. Oh,
So, joining your blocks together. So you've done all your quilting, you've got all your blocks done, you've got them all with the sashing. You're going to now join them together. I'm just going to move that out of the way. So, you've got an inch all the way around. You want to join these two together. What you're going to do, put your blocks together, and the one on the left hand side, you're going to trim it. I'm going to take some of that off there. You're going to trim it with level with your block. So find your straight seam, one of them, and the edge of your block. And this is where you can trim things down if they haven't quite met up and everything else. It'll all go together. Now with this seam here, I want to be sure that I've got at least 1/4 inch here, because that's going to be the seam allowance.
to give you your perfect
So
point.
I wouldn't trim it to that point there, because I'd lose my points when I came to join it together.
Yeah, yeah.
So just making sure that I've got at least 1/4 inch
Yeah.
round, but I can trim that little bit off there that's sticking out.
Elaine says lots of quilting on a block and a whole quilt would mean lots of turning, and for me, struggling to get through with the machine. That's why
this is this.
Jane's showing you the quilt as you go method, which is lovely. And do you know what? I don't think I've seen it demonstrated apart from with like the June Taylor kits, quilt as you go kits.
Yes, and there is a method of doing it where you put like a little extra strip, like a sashing strip.
Yeah.
And you make a binding and a coping strip, a binding strip at the back, so you're ending up sewing through 5 layers of fabric. I've done that method and it's lovely, but you do end up with an extra piece of fabric, which can look really nice. But for this, we can use the sashing strip as it is. So we've trimmed that one, all 3 layers to the size that we want.
Right.
This one, on what will be the right hand side, but obviously I'm going to turn it round, I'm going to just trim that back to 1/2 inch. So the wadding and the backing, I am trimming to 1/2 inch, and I'm just making sure that it's lined up with the edge of my block and nice and square. So I'm using this seam here to line that up. The 1/2 inch is against the fabric. I've got lined up with that seam on my ruler, and I've got this line up. You can always tug your quilt underneath to make sure that it's all lined up. So 1/2 inch of wadding and backing fabric. Just move that up the board a bit. Now when you're cutting wadding, it will dull your blade.
Oh, now she tells me. Just as well I've got spare.
Yeah, so you've got to have spare. Right, so the left hand side one, all 3 layers cut through. The right hand side one trimmed to 1/2 inch either side. We're now, and this is sometimes where you have to unpick a little bit of seam. So like if you seamed right up to the end, just unpick it back about 1/4 inch. This will make sense eventually. You can always go back and quilt over it if it's not quite, but it should go into the seam. So you're going to pull this back 1/4 inch.
Oh.
Right, and fold the wadding and the backing fabric out of the way. You see that? So you've just got the quilt top here and the wadding and the backing fabrics out of the way. You're going to line the top up now with that block, lining up your seams, making sure that this backing fabric is out of the way. So if I just pop a pin in there, just to keep that out of the way, and lining all that up. Just making sure your seams are lined up here, so you may want to put pins in it at this point just to make sure that any seams that should be matching just match up. There we are. It's all gone quiet now.
Oh, we're watching. We're watching.
So you've got that all lined up there. Let's just pop a pin in at the bottom there just to hold that bit down. So we're now going to sew 1/4 inch down here with this out of the way, which is why you need to unpick it, and you might want to unpick it a bit more. It's how you feel comfortable with it. So we'll take that to 1/4 inch again. Just going to make the stitch length just slightly longer. There we go. And you're going to seam that with 1/4 inch, just like if you were joining blocks together.
So just with 1/4 inch.
Just 1/4 inch, just an ordinary seam, like you were sewing your blocks together. So you're sewing through the 3 layers of the one block,
Yeah.
and just your top layer of the block that's going to be next to it.
Okay.
There'll be people shouting at me because I'm sewing through the pins.
No one is shouting at you, Jane. We wouldn't dare. Quick message for Jeanette. Jeanette, my love, you have 2 accounts, both with different email addresses. Are you using the correct email address to try to log in? Or are you using the correct password? Oh, no, there you go. You're trying to use the wrong email address. All right. Okay, good. We're all sorted.
So
There was a moment trying to log in. There we are.
1/4 inch there. Oh, it skipped a few stitches there. That sometimes happens and you have to go back, but it doesn't normally. With your walking foot it should sew. Let me just sew that over. It might be that I haven't got my stitch length long enough.
So elongate your stitch length.
Yeah, just not like quilting length, but just a little. If you have it on 2.6 normally, maybe make it 2.8. Just seems to work better. And oh, yeah, that's okay. It's done it. I don't know why, because normally it would sew through 4 layers, no problem. It just happens sometimes. So we've got that effect. So on the front, that looks like it's pieced.
That's fab.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
But on
then
the
flip
back,
it over, and on the back,
we've got some
now
wibbly wobbly bits
you've got
going on.
your wadding. And of course you don't want to fold just that over, because that will make it bulky and seam, and you don't want it bulky. You want the piece of wadding to lie flat so it butts up together.
Right.
Okay. So the way I found to do it, take your backing fabric and move it out of the way, and you will feel where the wadding meets up. And you just want to trim this bit of wadding away, and you'll use your scissors, and you'll just do it very carefully, taking a little bit at a time, because you don't want to cut through your block. And you're just putting the points of your scissors in. I don't know if we can see this, and it's up against that seam, and we're just very carefully trimming.
If you angle that slightly towards that camera up there, Jane, then we might be able to see.
This way. So it's in, and it's just cutting through the wadding, and because we're right up against that seam, we don't want to cut through the fabric. It'll take it to the edge.
Lovely. So a couple of questions, let me just answer. Sue says, what have I got on the end of my sewing machine? That is a fabulous little device called the needle holster. And basically, it's different sizes of needles for my machine. And then, because I can never remember what size needle I've got in my machine, you put a little sort of, it's almost like a pipe cleaner in where you take the needle out, so you always know which needle you have in your machine. They are on the website. And Joanne says, is the quilt in the background a new project? Yes, for next next month. Dun dun dun. We're just teasing you for now, aren't we, Jane?
Just
Because we
teasing,
can.
Yeah.
So that will be next month, and it will be in 2 colourways. It will be in the Tilda, and it will also be in very traditional Jo Morton fabrics, which are very earthy and well, they're sort of replica 1900s,
Civil
aren't
War
they?
type
Yeah.
colours, yeah. Nice. So you can see now that wadding, more or less, butts straight up to the other one.
Yeah.
So there'll be no bulk there. So with this piece now, you take it and you fold it over and you fold it back over, and it covers that line of stitching.
Oh, that's clever.
And you can either hand sew that down
What?
like you would your binding, but you can, and we'll see if we can do it, put your pins in that way round so that they're away from that fold there.
If I have wash away quarters tape, can I whack a bit of that on there at this point to hold it down?
You don't need to.
You don't need to.
You could do, yeah, you could do your quilter's tape, yeah. Holds it down, doesn't it, while
Yeah.
you sew on it, and then
Yeah.
it washes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. Save you pinning it, because you are going to have to have the pins underneath when you're sewing. So if your machine doesn't like sewing over pins, then you'll be having to go under the quilt and sew it down. Take them out before you sew over them.
Sonia says, hi Natasha, will you or Jane be having any workshops after lockdown, as I find all your guests are brilliant. So how soon will I know when your workshops start? Oh, wow. How soon will we know? So we haven't planned any yet.
Real live actual...
What, like actual in front of people?
Yes. So we're now going to sew in the ditch on the front of the quilt. So we're sewing this seam here. So pop your...
So you've flipped it over the right way.
Yeah, I've got the sewn there.
Yeah.
Now if I've done this properly, this
No pressure. No pressure.
then sew down that seam. Take your time, and as I say, I can see here where the pins are, so you can feel,
Yeah.
and you can take them out as you get to them.
Yeah. I guess that
With
is...
the walking foot, it is slightly easier to sew over pins, but I'm not going to tell you, if you don't like sewing over pins, I'm not going to tell you to sew over pins, because it's your machine and you know what it can take. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have done it this way and hit a pin and broken my needle and bent the pin and caused all sorts of hassle. But you can do it.
I guess that's where the tape has its advantage, isn't
Yes,
it?
of course it does.
So
quilter's
it's,
tape.
but it's whatever you feel comfortable with. Some people want to go the traditional route, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for ways to make my life
Yeah,
easy.
the quilter's tape would make it so much easier.
Oh, morning, Ian. How are you? Claire says this is proper quilt as you go. Look at the concentration.
Yeah.
And then is it just a case of repeating that
Yeah,
with every
this
block?
process then will... So when I turn this over, ta-da, there you are, you see, it's caught
Nice.
that seam down. You can see it's a little bit wobbly there, there's a little bit wider
Would you
gap than there
mind
is there.
showing us on a close-up?
Yeah.
No one's judging wobbly stitches, Jane.
No, well, we
We're all
don't,
friends here.
don't do quilting police. So if I put that there, you can see by sewing in the ditch there, it's sewn that piece down.
Can you flip it and show us the ditch, please?
Yep.
Oh, Ian says hello, by the way. Jane.
Hello, Ian. So there we go.
So that was the ditch. So
That's
the
the
ditch
ditch
was
there.
where your cornerstone met your sashing.
Yep,
Nice.
that was where the two blocks were joined together.
Right. Good job.
So you would work the same way. So you've got these two joined together now. You would join this one on. You trim this level, all 3 layers level. This side,
You'd leave a bit longer.
1/2 inch.
Okay.
Flip the wadding and the backing away. Sew it, pin it, sew it 1/4 inch. Flip it back. Trim the wadding. Flip the backing fabric out the way. Trim the wadding so that it's level with the top bit, so that they butt together flat. And then bring that piece over. So you would do that in rows.
Yeah.
And then you would sew your rows together, and your rows are exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You trim this piece here level, and then the piece which would have this bit of wadding here, this
Yeah.
bit of sashing, 1/2 inch.
Okay.
So the process is the same. So you'd make 3 rows, join them together.
Now, Susan says she's finishing off her order. Is 2 meters of Alistair fabric enough for the backing? Now, and we started on this, didn't we? And we weren't very
Yes.
clear. So
I would say get 3 meters.
so that you can
Because-
take a slice.
Yeah. If you don't want to join it, if you want to cut it up and add a bit of fabric in
Yeah.
that you've got, then 2 meters would be enough.
Okay.
But if you want to join 2 pieces together, you're going to need at least 1.5 meters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If not 3.5 meters actually, because
Oh,
a
hang on,
metre and a
because we're-
half
yeah,
is
because
60, isn't it? And
Yes.
you'd need it a bit
we're
longer.
going to we're going to 70
Yeah.
inches, which is more.
Yes.
I
nearly
can't
one
do
and a-
maths
it's
and
one and
everything
three- it's-
else.
It's nearly 1 3/4, 70 inches.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I know that sounds really scary, Susan, but you will have loads left over for another project.
for
So think of it
linings
as
and-
an investment
Yeah.
to another project, or bag linings, or anything else that you want to make.
If you bought 1 3/4 or 2 meters, it would only just be wide enough. You'd have no room for manoeuvre.
Yeah.
You'd be taking in you'd be using your salvages as well. So you might,
Shirley says, "Oh, I need these instructions written down too."
They are in
They
the
are.
completion.
They are. So if you've got the,
Are they? No, they're not.
are they?
No, they're not.
So they are going to be.
They will be.
Is what we
I will
is
do
what we
an
mean
additional
there.
page.
Yeah, there we go. We shall add a page in for you, Shirley.
I just want to talk about sewing your ends in as well.
Okay, another quick question from Sue. I can never remember. Is it 50 weight thread for piecing and 40 weight for quilting, or the other way around? I can never remember that either.
The higher the number, the finer the thread. So yes, 50 weight for piecing, 40 weight for quilting.
Right.
But don't stress if you've got 50 weight thread and it's the right colour and you want to use it for quilting, it'll be fine.
Right.
So don't stress about the weight of your thread, really. And the same for piecing. If you've only got 40 weight and you've got piecing to do and you've got no 50 and you can't get to a shop, just
Don't panic.
use 40.
Don't panic. Sonia says, bless her, she's please forgive me. Sonia, look, the whole thing about the block of the month was to teach.
Yes.
And so there's absolutely no
There's
point in us doing it if you all
no.
know what you're doing. You would make us redundant. She says, I would like to know, when quilting, do I need to increase the stitch size, or does it depend on the sewing machine that you use? I think that's a good question.
I would recommend increasing your stitch length.
To what sort of length, Jane?
I use 2.6 on my Elna machine for piecing.
Right.
So when I'm quilting, I take it up to 3 or 3.5, depending on what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, I think on my Elna, 3.5 is a nice length stitch.
Okay.
What my teachers used to say, you don't want toe catchers. So you don't want really long stitches. You're going to catch your toes in. But it's not, you can, I don't know if you can
I've
see.
never heard of that expression. That's
If
brilliant.
if I take this up, you can see,
Oh,
because
hang on. Yeah,
I've got the variegated thread on here, so you can see, because it's lighter.
Pretty, yeah.
You can see that's 3.5 stitch, so you can see it's not huge, but it's decorative.
It's not a toe catcher. I love that.
Yeah, so you can see it there. It's not a big long stitch, but it's slightly longer than your normal piecing stitch,
Okay.
because it's decorative as well as functional. You know, it's meant to be seen.
Okay. Anne says, what's the amount of wadding and backing material needed for the quilt as you go?
You can get away with the same amount because it's only you know I've made it an inch bigger all the way around, but you can make it half an inch bigger. So I think with your 70 piece you'll have enough.
Yeah, that's why we've added in. So for the wadding is cut to your 70 inches. So you
Yeah.
can either cut it down or you can use it exactly as is.
Yeah.
And Anne says, Susan says, it's so okay, 3 meters it is. This is the thing, isn't it? This is where spreading the cost of your quilt has, I think has helped, because
Yes.
this is the bit where we all gulp a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
know.
when it comes to the wadding and backing, it's probably, if you've been doing it a bit at a time, it's probably the biggest
It
cost in your quilt.
yeah,
You don't notice the odd fat quarter here, there, do
Yeah,
you?
no.
But you suddenly
But this
face
is
with
the
a big
other
piece
thing.
of wadding and backing, you're like, ooh.
okay. Now I know, some places they'll have it up for like the day and then it's gone and you feel pressured to buy. I have had from day dot Alistair's backing fabric on my website.
Yeah.
It is not going to run out. Well, maybe maybe some of the darker ones because of the scrubs.
Yes.
I know a lot of people have bought them for the scrubs.
Yeah.
But that's all coming back through again now. So don't panic. If you can only buy the wadding this month, just do that.
Yeah.
If you need to stagger it, just stagger it. It's not going to go anywhere, any of this.
Yeah.
I'm cutting it. I'm sure I will always have spare. I can always get it in and we can always cut you some more. So don't worry about it. I feel very much that Jane and I invested in this. This was our very first show. I feel very passionately about it. So we're not going to go, oh, well, it's tough, you've missed out. That's not how we operate here.
No.
This is it. If you start the project, we will help you finish it any way that we physically can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that you feel the same.
Yes, I think so. So that's the quilting side of it. Next time we meet in July, we're going to talk about the binding.
Yes.
And
Yes,
we'll
yes.
go into that quite in depth, and I'm going to do a little worksheet for that.
If you want to get ahead, there are 2 ways to get your binding. You have used the Copen blue.
Yes.
Now, you said 1/2 metre
Yes.
would do for that. So I have put up 1/2 metre of Copen blue if you wish to make your own.
Yeah.
If you don't, then I have put up a bundle of 7 metres of binding pre-made in either
Brilliant.
navy or royal blue, which you can whack in your basket and you can get your wadding and your binding for under 30 quid.
Brilliant. Perfect.
And
Perfect.
shh, we won't tell anyone.
Nobody will know.
So we'll teach you the traditional way. We will teach you my treat way. The busy person's way. And either way, you will end up with a quilt that is bound.
So I just want to talk about tying the ends in, because you will have started and finished with a fairly long end,
Oh, yes.
and you've got a long, if I take it to
Oh, do you know, just as Susan says, finishing threads, please? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Yeah, we nearly forgot that.
Yes.
Sorry.
So you've got the long edge there, and if I give it a little bit of a tug, let me put my glasses back on. What have I done with it?
What you have to? Oh, your glasses.
So I can
yeah.
see what I'm doing. You give it a bit of a tug, it pulls the loop of the top thread through. So if you take your needle and just pull that thread,
Mhm.
to the back, tie it with an ordinary top knot, tied once, tied, twice. Okay.
Mhm.
Take your 2 pieces of thread, and if you've got a needle with an eye that's big enough, we'll see if it works with this one. Put those 2 threads through your needle. Just done it. That's it. And then take the needle into the back of your quilt. I don't know if we can see it. Can you just see it's under there? It's not, it can go into the wadding, but you don't want obviously to go through to the front.
Mm.
Run your needle along,
And bury it.
pull it through, and pull the threads out. And then just give it a little bit of a tug and snip as closely to the fabric as you feel comfortable, and then it'll go back in.
Okay.
and then that's out of the way.
Perfect. Anna Sewing Nut makes a very good point. She says that if you're doing the quilt as you go method, you could decide to use different coloured squares for the backing,
You could.
and that
you
would be
could
quite
have-
effective. And that's another way that we can use up
Yeah, you've got a
previous
reversible.
bits of backing, or
Yeah.
you know, scraps that are left over from other projects and things like that. So we've got Alistair's wide, we've got the super wide sort of tilde backing that I've got on the website, and again that is 108 inches, so that's 270 centimeters wide.
Yeah.
So that would do you, if you got 2 meters of that,
2 metres
so
of that,
4
you'd have
units of that, 2
plenty.
meters of that, you will have enough for another quilt project.
If you're feeling a little bit more confident, you could sew your rows of blocks together
Ooh,
Quilt
quilt
the
as you go
rows
that way.
and then just quilt the rows together.
Oh, nice.
So you can do it that way. And I think that's what I did with this one.
We'll soon find out, won't we?
Yeah, I did. And I did 2 methods. I did the sew it with the machine on that one. It's a bit bulky in that bit there. But that's the row there, sewn together. And then this is hand stitched down.
It's a good job we're on lockdown, isn't it? You've got
Yeah.
time to do a bit of hand stitching, Jane.
So that's hand stitched down. So you've got to see the 2 ways of doing it there.
Beautiful.
You can, on some of your machines, you've got the locking stitch when you can cut it.
Yeah.
You can do that with your quilting. You can do the locking stitch and let the machine cut it, but you do end up with little bits sticking up like that.
But it doesn't take a minute,
That
does it,
doesn't
to just
matter.
go
You
and
can trim that
snip.
down because the stitch is locked, so it's not going to come unravelled.
That locking stitch on my machine is one of my absolute favourite things.
Yeah,
I use it all the time.
yeah,
All the time. That, and the fact that I just press a button and it cuts the thread, lifts everything, lifts the foot, lifts the needle, lifts
Yeah.
everything.
does it all
I
for you.
just love it. Can you tell us how much Copen Blue is needed for the binding? 1/2 metre, Susan, 1/2 metre.
Yeah,
I think it works out at being about £3.99 or something like that.
yeah.
And
you're
is that
gonna
going to
need-
be next week? Next month,
Next
Susan, next
month.
month. Yeah.
Yeah. 6 strips if you want to cut it ready. 6 strips at 2.5.
Yeah, so those of you that have just invested in your stripology, you're going to be like, oh, come
Yeah,
on,
just
what can I
cut
cut into
this.
strips? Everything. Cut
Everything.
everything into strips.
It's all done for you.
Brilliant. So, okay, so to clarify, the wadding is already cut into 70 inches. So that will do if you're quilting it in one go or quilt as you go.
Yeah,
If you go for 146 to 150 centimetre wide backing, get 3 metres or get 2 metres and then fill in with another colour that
Yeah.
you've got at home. If you are quilting as you go, you can use smaller amounts of fabric, so you might want to do a patchwork on the
yeah.
back
If you've got
effectively.
some fat quarters that you know, you're thinking, oh, I've only got one of these and I haven't got anything else to use it with.
Yeah,
You could use that on the back.
yeah.
Let me just check the measurement of that before I say you can use a fat quarter.
And the backing and the binding, if you want to make your own binding, then the Copen Blue is underneath where we are live on the show today on the website, www.natashamakes.com, and a 1/2 metre is sufficient. If you want to buy 7 metres ready-made binding, you can also do that. It works out, I think, about £1 more.
Yeah. You would be able to use fat quarters on these pieces,
Right?
but this one with the extra sashing on the side is slightly wider than a fat quarter, so
Okay.
you'd have to cut something out of you. Or piece it, you know,
There we go.
join 2 bits together.
There we go.
Because you'll get a lovely effect on the back then. It'll be really lovely, you know, like a reversible quilt.
Beautiful. So Susan says, sorry, too keen. No, there's always a keno in the class,
Yeah,
isn't there?
it's
There's always there's keen.
And it's always good to ask because sometimes we might forget to say.
And also people have joined us at different points and missed when we've said it, so
Yes.
it's okay. On the website also are Jane's guide to completing.
Yeah.
So that's all good. Sonia says, thank you so much for answering questions, Natasha. This is why you love Natasha Makes. Thank you. Thank you. Well, do you know what? It's being able to surround myself by brilliant people. And that's what we do here. That's you, by the way, Jane.
That's very kind of you. I was going to say it takes one to know one, but that made me sound like I was really like, because you're brilliant too.
Do you know what? I've had lovely guests this week, and I'm very privileged to have the wealth of experience that comes through the door.
Yeah.
So thank you, and the hard work that you put in. So to recap on anyone that is still asking the question, the quilt at the back will be next month.
Yes.
So if you want to save your pennies for something a bit special, then that is it, and it will be in 2 different colourways. That is the Tilda. It's a bit good.
It's a bit gorgeous.
It is a bit gorgeous. And then there will be a really traditional colourway as well. And we'll show you how to make up the block in the traditional colourway. We'll make it up as a cushion so that if you want to do either, then you can.
Yeah.
There you go.
Lovely.
There you go. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
I will be back as per usual on Monday. I'm over at Hochanda tomorrow with Bex Reed, would you believe?
Oh, lovely. With Amber Makes.
No,
just
we
Bex
are
and
doing like a mariner's quilt type.
Ooh.
Yeah, like I think it's a Robin. Oh, what's her surname?
The Robin.
Yeah, the
Ruth.
sunflower.
Robin Ruth. Is
Robin Ruth.
Ruth.
Yes. Quilt tomorrow.
Lovely.
Oh, Anna's got to go. She's about to have her child with a Zoom music lesson.
Oh,
The joy. Oh, God, I hope it's not like the violin or something. Could you put something over where your points don't match? Yeah. Always
if
a
you
button.
want to,
You could quilt with a button. That's what we do.
I think, don't worry about it. Because if your points don't match when it's quilted and you've got other, you won't see it.
I tend to put a cat on it.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah. No one notices.
Just fold that bit behind where nobody can see. And
Right.
I don't know if we lift that up there. Yeah. You can't see the points don't match on that from there, can you?
Don't they?
Well, if you look at them really close.
Oh, hang on. You want a
Yeah,
close up
close
now,
up.
don't you?
You see, don't match, do they there? That's
Don't they?
quite off. There's not even a point on that bit.
Oh, gosh.
But from a distance,
From a distance.
3 feet away is the rule. 3 feet away, because that's how far away you are from it when it's on a bed or on the back of a sofa.
Are you socially distancing
Like
yourself?
socially distance from your quilt. You can't see
That's
it.
what we have to insist on. I'm afraid I'm insisting you socially distance yourself from my quilt.
If people start picking your quilt apart and going, well, the points don't match on
Kick
here,
them out your house. They're not your
they
friend.
don't want them to be your friends.
No.
Or give them a biscuit because they've spotted the mistake.
Jane, thank you so much. I will see you next. Same time, same place. Oh. No, we wanted to ask.
Oh, yes. We're planning the next block of the month. Shall I show you them the picture?
Yeah, it's
Just one
a
moment.
bit gorgeous. So shall I ask the question about days and times?
Yes.
So here's the thing, like
Let's
Jane
go.
has a job that's not here. Rude. She's not just ours.
That's my plan for the block of the month.
I mean, it's beautiful.
It's sort of, I've called it Sea Storm because it's sort of a storm at sea combination medallion style.
Love it.
It's made up of 7 blocks. So it'd be a 7-month quilt. We do it a block each month. Now, the more observant of you will notice that there's some of the blocks there's more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So month 1, it would be the centre block, which is just on its own. But then you've got 4 blocks here, and then you've got 8 blocks there, and you've got 4 blocks, and there's another block that's full of 4 blocks. And then you've got the 4 corner blocks.
Oh my gosh, I've just noticed the corners. How did I
Yeah.
miss the corners? Oh, it was not on shot.
Yeah.
That's why.
So what we wondered was how you would like it presented to you. And we could offer 3 options, couldn't we?
Yeah.
We could offer the full instructions and the full kit, all the fabric, to buy all in one go. And then you can sew along if you like. We can offer just the pattern, so you can do it in your own fabrics, using up your scraps or whatever, if you don't like the blue colourway.
Who doesn't like the blue,
Or
Jane?
we could do like a subscription, so we divide the cost of the full kit.
We would divide it equally. So week
7.
number 1,
You'd pay the same price for enough fabric to do one block as you would pay in week 5 or 6 when you're making 8 blocks. So the first block you might think, sure, that's a bit expensive for that little amount of fabric, but
it's
further down the line,
you're going to get loads.
so it would be equally paid rather than going, well, this block one is this much and then block 7,
and we
because
felt,
there's all this fabric, it's going to be a lot more.
We felt that would allow people to budget because they knew exactly what was coming. And if that were the case, would you also like us to add a couple of quid in each month to then pay for the backing and binding at the end?
Yeah.
You know, that's the other way that we could do it.
Yes, because the binding would be included in the kit.
Yeah.
But the backing and the wadding wouldn't
that's
be.
what I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I've got so many questions now. I hope you're paying attention and writing all these down. The other thing is, would you like to stick to the 10th at 10 o'clock, which means Jane has to take some days off work until I can persuade her to just come and work with me? Or would you like to make it like the first Sunday of every month?
Yeah, or Wednesday. I get Sundays and Wednesdays off from work. So we could either do it the first Sunday of the month or we could do it the first Wednesday of the month, whichever works better for yourselves.
There you go.
Or do you like the 10th at 10?
Yeah.
Because that's fine too.
We'll work it around what everybody thinks.
I'm just going to take a swig of drink because I've just got a tickle.
You do that. You do that, you do that. So we'll leave you to mull that over. I will put a post to that effect on social media, on Facebook, so you can let us know your thoughts. Our viewers are very good at letting us know their thoughts.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's nice because then we know where we're going and what you prefer.
Well, let's face it, without
Because
you
we're
guys,
all different, aren't we?
Yeah.
Some of us like to have everything in one go and then we know where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have got a vast stash of fabric.
I
like that pattern and I've got blues and turquoises at home that I could use, so I just want the pattern. And then there's others that, you know, we're on a tighter budget and knowing that we're paying the same amount each month and we're just getting a little bit at a time and we're learning as we go. Again, we'll be learning. I'm sort of taking it the next step up from what we've already learnt.
Right.
So it's not a beginner quilt.
Okay.
We need to have some experience now. And if you've
done
with me for this one,
you've got the experience.
you've got the
Oh,
experience.
okay. Well, that's great. Perfect.
And, you know, there's a lot of seams to match in this one. So, you know, we're going to have to be a little bit more accurate with our cutting and our seam allowance and everything else. So we're going to be a bit more stringent and, you know, work harder on getting seams matching and making sure that everything is the same size.
How big is it going to be?
It's going to be a big one. I think it comes out at 75.
So I'll just start cutting the wadding now, Jane. It's
Yeah.
fine.
75 inches square, so it's going to be a
15
good,
inches bigger than we've been working on.
a good
That's okay.
size one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So not a throw, a proper bed quilt really.
Fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous. All right. We will look through everybody's answers as well.
Yeah,
and
give us an
see-
idea of how you feel and how you'd like it to go, because Natasha is amazingly accommodating, we can do whatever you like. Within reason.
Well, you know, just don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
No, tell everyone.
No.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And thank you everybody at home for watching. I realise that we have taken up 3 mornings of your time this week. So thank you for that. And Jane, we will see you next month at 10 o'clock.
Yes, a
On the
Friday,
10th.
isn't it? Next month.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good job. I'm glad you know.
Yes.
I have no idea. Every day is the same.
It is at the moment, isn't it? It's
A
like,
little bit. A little bit. All right. Excellent.
Lovely.
Oh, yeah, lots of people saying Sunday is tricky, so maybe Sunday might be.
Yes, because I
Might
know
be
people
a
go to church and they have
yeah.
family days and things like
Yeah.
that. So maybe Wednesday, first
Yeah.
Wednesday of the month, maybe.
Maybe. Let's throw it out there. Let's throw it out there. All right then, my loves. Thank you so much for watching us. I'm going to go and switch everything off
Okay.
because I don't have people to do this anymore, Jane. They're all being safe at home.
Yeah.
So hang on. If I climb round this way, oh look, I set off the printer. Lovely. But I'm still socially acceptably far away enough.
Yeah.
Right, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye,
Thank
bye,
you.
bye, bye,
Bye-bye.
bye, bye,
Bye.
bye.